we aren't experts
Mhm.
in anything,
No.
right? Today, I'm once again joined by Astrid Miyu, CMO, and my first ever hire from 11 years ago, Sarah Hrywnak.
This environment isn't for everyone. When you have time out of the business, so much changes within that period.
How do you manage that?
I think it comes with experience.
We're successful because we do things so differently.
It isn't about you. You don't get any glory.
In this episode, we're getting into the growing pains of the business, the scale-up era.
You can't break boundaries if you're not trying something different.
Sarah told me there are just two things I need to focus on.
Wise words from me.
One mistake I made was... Welcome to Unboxed. I'm your host, Connie Nam, the founder of Astrid Miyu. In these conversations, I speak to founders, investors, and creators who are all breaking boundaries in their space to discover the person behind the brand and what it took for them to build their empires. Sarah, welcome back. Our very own Sarah Hrywnak.
Thanks for having me again.
Thanks for joining me in the pod, and long time no see. I
It
just
is,
saw you
yeah.
like half an hour ago.
Yeah, a few minutes ago.
What a journey we've been on.
huge
Yeah,
journey.
I feel like we've grown so much together,
Yeah.
but the business growth, like it's a completely different business. And
Yeah.
I guess when you joined 11 years ago, we were a startup.
Mhm.
I guess if I dare to say, I thought it was just a one-man band with you, but we were a startup, and then we became a scale-up at some point. And the way I define scale-up is when you have a clear business model that you can replicate, and then can start hiring specialists. That's how I define a scale-up.
Yeah.
But in this kind of environment, especially like when you or like someone's reporting directly to the founder, because like we aren't experts in anything,
No.
right? You kind of
No.
well, you didn't have to say that so enthusiastically, but it means you need to carve your own path and kind of
Yeah.
learn on the job yourself. How have you done that?
Yeah, so it was definitely a huge journey. I learned so much from you. I learned so much from different like people that we worked with, looking at, other brands and agencies that we worked with, and kind of building up my skill set and area of expertise through that, but keeping motivated. But also I think, always having that same company vision, aligning with the goals, aligning where we want to take Astrid Miyu, and that was always so clear. So I think that is definitely what gave me the drive and motivation to, carve your own path, carve your own like job role within a very fast-paced growing company.
Yeah.
Where those like roles and departments and projects aren't quite set, and you just kind of have to see where things evolve.
Yeah, I guess like we had a few people that were in similar positions. We had some people that like, have been successful within the business, that people that have not been. Like, what do
Yeah.
you think are the differentiating factors? Because they all had access to the same things, right?
Yeah, like really good question. I think this environment isn't for everyone. And I think it's how you take it, what you do with it, how you run with it. I was always so passionate about what we were doing. I loved the brand. I loved you. And I think it's because I really saw where we could take things, the long-term vision, and that passion, but also being agile to move and to, work crazy hours, crazy days, but all pitch in and move forward. I think some people struggle in an environment like that without those clear structures, without those clear like paths. But you had to carve that out for yourself. So for me, like I love that environment, and I guess it's been difficult, that journey of change, to move away from that. But you learn so much, and it's not for everyone.
Yeah,
for
and
sure.
you've done an incredible job, and you've been so successful.
Yeah, I try. So at what point do you feel that we pivoted from startup to scale up?
Yeah, as I mentioned before, like the difference between a startup and a scale-up is like there's so many unknowns. Like everything you need to figure out yourself, and it's the first time we're doing it. We're testing, learning. We don't know what the outcome will be.
Yeah.
When I felt like it was a scale-up, a lot of the things were predictable. Not everything, obviously. Like still a lot of things are unpredictable, but you have elements where like things are predictable. You can actually forecast. So when we had our store like model, when our stores became incredibly profitable and people were queuing up to come into our store, I thought that's when we had a business model, and that's when we can really replicate that model and scale up and open multiples of locations. So I guess that was back in 2018, 2017.
Yeah.
So it's not that long ago
Yeah.
where we entered into scale up phase, and like we've been in scale up phase for for a bit now, but still in it.
Yeah, so exciting though.
Yeah, really exciting. What were some of the biggest changes you felt during this time?
Yeah, thinking about this, so much happens. There's so many changes, but I think the main thing for me is going from a 2-man team, a 5-man team to like 30, 60, 90 plus. And it's that change in that mindset. I think it's the change within your role, what you bring to the table, what you kind of have to like lean on teams for. That's definitely a big change and a big process that you have to go through. Obviously, I was so involved in everything. I did everything, but I'm not the expert at all, and I needed to learn to hire the right people to hand things over, let them run with things, and be okay with that.
I guess you're kind of the founder of the marketing department, right?
Yeah, I guess so. So that was a big change, and I guess also when you have time out of the business, say I don't know, a 1 week, 2 week holiday, or mat leave, which was a big thing for me. So much changes within that period because we're moving so quickly. So even having a week out, so much happens and so many things change and pivot. So it's learning to manage that and be okay with that change.
How do you manage that if someone listening to this is in that, I guess, stage or circumstance?
Everyone struggles with change, and this is something that I talk to a lot with my team, and other teams around. But this environment, it happens all the time, so you kind of have to be. And I think it's also understanding your position, being in your path, understanding what you bring, and then being excited by the changes and something that might happen which might not have been on the cards before, but then what it opens up and what it then can bring for you, your team, like the brand overall. So I think it comes with experience and age and
wisdom.
So how did you feel when you started to hire more people and the teams grew, departments grew, and they were older than you or like more experienced than you?
Not many people are older than me, by the way. But they are more experienced than me in every single function.
Yeah.
Like for sure. And I think I was quite excited. It was only constrained by like our finances. So like whenever we were ready, I did make that plunge. But I think one mistake I made was whenever we brought in a specialist who are experts in those functions, I kind of like thought they might know everything. I think I kind of gave too much weight on that single person or revered that person in a way and kind of handed over like all reins of that department. And I think that's one mistake I've made in like the hard way. And if any early stage founder is listening to this, I think just being confident on what you bring to the table, as you mentioned earlier, as a founder, that you are the visionary. You have to give direction. Like even if you don't know that function, you have to be the guiding force, and you know what's right and wrong. And we're successful because we do things so differently. And so, like the mistake I made was sometimes like you bring in someone who's amazing, like very competent from a big company, to hopefully bring in best practices. And the wrong hire would be like, we don't do it like that there. We don't do it like that there. And I think I kind of like listened to it, tried to soak that in. But ultimately, we are successful because of how we do it, how we do things differently. And we know that a lot of big brands are watching us and copying us at the same time. So just being more confident around it, I think, is a big lesson I learned.
Yeah, definitely.
I guess you touch upon what you bring to the table. And I know, like, firsthand, speaking very I hope you don't mind me mentioning this, but you did have imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
And I did too, obviously. But like you really struggled because you were promoted to head of marketing very early on, and you were like really young. And like, although I knew that you were doing things right, you always questioned yourself because you never had that marketing person telling you like, this is the right thing.
Yeah.
How do you overcome that? And how do you figure out like what you bring to the table?
Yeah. I mean, imposter syndrome, so many people suffer with it. Well, not suffer, like experience it. And I think it is completely normal. I guess it's good to talk about and to be aware of. How I overcome it was building on my confidence. Like you said, I didn't come from a professional marketing background. Everything I know about marketing is what I've learned on the job. But it's looking outside of the business, looking at other marketing professionals in similar spaces, I think leaning on them, built up my confidence a lot. Something I remember that you like told me to do when I came back from maternity leave, which really helped, was take a step back, reflect. I think we move so quickly. We never actually take that time to reflect on things and to evaluate each other.
I remember saying this.
Yeah.
Those are very wise words.
Yeah, very wise. And it really helped. And I've also like, you know, encouraged other people to do the same. But I think we move so quickly and we take things for granted. I just forget what we've done. So that exercise really helped to take a step back, actually write down everything that I've accomplished within the brand, but also look ahead to the future, build out my future CV and see what I want to bring. And it seems so achievable, but then off the back of that, really leaning on what my like superpowers are as a marketing professional. And that just really helped give me that confidence. I can't say I've overcome the imposter syndrome, but I deal with it. And I think, it will, you know, come with time and experience. But
yeah, I think it's healthy to have a little bit of it.
Yeah.
Because if you're overly confident, you could make really bad decisions.
Yeah.
And not listen, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Speaking of superpowers, like when you were experiencing imposter syndrome, I think everyone else was at that time, because we were at scale up phase and like everyone was a bit uneasy having, you know, more experienced people coming in, etc. So I decided to introduce a strength culture, and we use this tool called Clifton Strength. This is not an ad. We're not being paid by Clifton. I felt like that tool was incredibly powerful. And to date, like every single person in the company, like 350 people, like use their strength and lean on their strength. So I guess it might be good to like kind of talk about what your superpowers are in the Clifton Strength, whether you agree with them, and how do you lean on those every single day?
Yeah, so my top 5 strengths are mainly around like relationships and influencing. So positivity, woo, relator, includer, and communication. So I guess I love being around people, and relationships is always so important for me. So I wasn't surprised when they came out. I think, like really leaning into those top strengths helped give me confidence to see what I brought to the team. And at first I felt they were a bit like fluffy, not really much substance, but actually like I'm quite proud of them because they are like part of me. And relationships is so important to me, and this is kind of how I manage my team. But I think that positivity and woo has helped me be really passionate about, you know, what we're doing, what we're creating, like what we're building, how we're revolutionizing the jury experience. Yeah, and I think that communication is so important to me personally and professionally. As the team grows, communication is so important. So really leaning into that strength, but also supporting others that maybe don't have that within their top strengths and maybe struggle with the communication, and I can help them with that. So I think it's been an amazing tool to bring the teams together, but also from like a management side. But what about yours? What are your strengths?
Oh, you know mine, but anyways, for the listeners, mine are futuristic, individualization, ideation, competition, and strategic. So I have a lot of strategic thinking strengths, and I have like a sprinkle of influencing and relationships. So execution is quite low for me, so I need a lot of executors around me. And I think like taking this test has also given me a lot of confidence around like building a plan and also like showing a vision. And I was like, oh, okay, like I got this. Like this comes very naturally to me. I'm very imaginative. I can think the future, and I really want to win. And I didn't have to be, I guess, embarrassed by it. Embarrassed by the fact that I'm like so competitive. Now I kind of own it.
I love it. And it's been great within the teams and like leadership teams to see different individual strengths and how like some people are so different, but then we really complement each other and it helps think differently or kind of assess things differently. So it's been an amazing tool.
And I guess it's also a sense check, right? To see whether you're hiring the people that are very similar to you or deliberately hiring people that are very different.
Yeah, you definitely need a balance. And I think as you're building out your team, knowing what certain strengths or areas that you're maybe lacking within the team where you need someone to bring in and inject a bit of woo or positivity. or like strategic thinking.
Yeah, and equally, like every function needs certain type of strengths,
Yeah,
right?
for
Because
sure.
marketing, for instance, has a lot of woo
Yeah.
and positivity.
Yeah.
Finance probably has a lot of analytical and restorative.
And they need that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And same with merchandising, and like product team probably have a lot of futuristic and ideation.
Yeah. Let's talk about growing a team. So how did you decide who you needed to hire and when?
I wish it was as strategic as that. But during startup phase, what worked, obviously I made a lot of mistakes along the way, was hiring people who have like loads of passion and like the most amazing work ethics and who are resourceful. So I think a good example is like you, who was my first hire. But also like Shani, who's our international director, right? So she joined us 6 years ago, and she's kind of overseen all of our back office functions before she focused on the commercials and became international director. And she's got such great attitude, and she's so passionate about the business, and she can just get stuck in and learn it. I mean, like, so do you. So I think like in the early stages, people like you and Shani, who can get stuck in and like just do everything and figure everything out. And then once we became a scale up, like per the definition that we discussed earlier, I felt like I needed specialists who can kind of optimize the areas that they're in and really scale the business and bring quote unquote best practices. I don't always love best practices, but you know what I mean. But people who can bring those expertise, but are very good cultural fits. And I guess like finance was very urgent because we didn't have a finance function for the first like 6 years. I was holding on to my spreadsheets for the longest time. The finance is probably like a function that typically people would hire from the get-go, but I didn't build out a finance function until 6 years on. And then once we had a retail rollout model, retail team had to be built. So like that was super urgent. You know, in order to have a sustainable brand, having a strong product team was very important. We always had very strong marketing, but product didn't necessarily follow. So like building out a product team was so I think it really depended on what the strategic priorities are at that time, and balancing that with how much budget we can spare for those particular people. So we talked about managing yourself and your motivations. What about managing a team? Because you now manage a huge team. You have 27 people reporting to you and 6 people reporting directly to you. It is our biggest function within the business.
Well, now we have the creative team and the marketing team together, which is great.
What are the challenges and wins of managing a team?
So people management is such a big topic. I've learned so much about, managing people, managing different types of personalities, and how, people are very complex.
And very sensitive when you allow them to be.
But I've always really enjoyed it. I think you need to make a decision whether you want to go down that people management route or whether you want to stay as like a specialist within your area. So quite early on, I went down that people management route because there was no one else to kind of do it. So I had never managed anyone before coming here. I learned so much from you again, and like also like Shani when she came in and started managing other teams. But I made a lot of mistakes along the way, and it was very challenging working with lots of different people. And I think, early on, we didn't have huge budgets, so we had to hire more people on the ground for like more generalists and to support across lots of multiple areas. I didn't have the structures in place or the templates there to kind of help them. And that was a struggle for them and for me. I feel like I've learned so much, and it kind of comes into the style of how I like to manage people now. And I think crafting that really open and honest relationship and transparency is something that, we've built our culture on and we're really like passionate about. And that's helped me manage lots of different people, juggle, I manage 6 people who are all very different, extremely talented, but like to be managed in different ways and kind of need to be encouraged in different ways. So it's leaning into that, and that, I guess, psychology and nuances behind people and their mindset and how they all come together to get the most out of them, but also giving them the right platform to grow. I've been able to promote a few of my team into head of department, which is amazing. And to see like the journey that they've been on here is just so rewarding for me. But you have to be passionate about that and want to invest in people to manage and grow a team.
Yeah, and I think again, management isn't for everyone.
No.
It needs to be about the other person, not about you.
Yeah,
And I feel like I observe that seems like a very difficult switch for a lot of people.
Yeah, it really is, because it isn't about you. You don't get any glory, and you need to be okay with that. You're championing everyone in your team. And if that's not how you thrive or what you're passionate about, then it is quite difficult, because you need to be very empathetic to people. You need to be very like encouraging and give them all the love and support that they need versus yourself. So it's not for everyone, but if it is, then it is so rewarding. So much more rewarding.
I remember there was a graphic designer who you used to mentor, and she told me after the mentorship that she was like mind blown, because she was about to enter this like management phase, and she said, "Oh, Sarah told me there are just two things I need to focus on in being a manager." And I thought that was so spot on.
Yeah.
She said, I don't know whether you remember this, but she said that you said you need to support their aspiration and build trust. They're the only two things that you need to do as a manager. And I thought that was so spot on. Like, that was amazing.
Wise words from me.
Yeah, very wise words. We have some wise words today.
So what were some of the biggest challenges for you during, say, the last few years?
I think it was managing myself and people simultaneously, because the business grew, but I also grew during that time. And I'm still winging it, and I'm constantly winging it. But as a founder, I think people look to you to get direction and to get reassurance, but no one cares like what's going on inside me, what kind of challenges I'm going through. So I think navigating like what the hell am I doing? What the hell am I doing with the business? And also navigating people's emotions and aspirations and adapting to change. I think that has been the biggest challenge. I mean, like having you and the whole leadership team and building out that strong leadership team has been transformative and in kind of supporting all of these things.
A lot of eyes look to you for questions.
I guess like when you're in a position of power, people don't assume that you have vulnerabilities or you have things to work on.
Yeah, that's
I guess
true.
that's quite difficult.
Yeah.
And like navigating myself, but also helping people navigate while I don't know how to do it myself.
Yeah.
What are some of the biggest challenges and mistakes for you?
Yeah, so I guess there's quite a lot, but I think the main thing and theme is probably having the wrong people in certain roles and not trusting my instincts when things aren't working. I think this environment, we've talked about this before, but it's not for everyone, and that's okay. And there's like very little structure, very little, I guess, guidance. You really have to think on your feet and create your own path, and not everyone is okay with that. But having the wrong person within the team or a certain role has such a negative effect on everyone around them, but also themselves as well. And I think that's been a huge learning.
Yeah, people are everything.
Yeah. And I guess when I feel like something's not working, I should have acted on it sooner than when I did. But yeah, I guess, again, people management is a big thing, and hiring the right person. But company culture and team culture is something that we've always been so protective of. And I guess my role and your role is to keep that going and be very protective over the culture. And as we grow, that not being impacted by having, the wrong individuals within the teams. So yeah, I guess that's probably the biggest mistake. I've made lots of other mistakes around spending too much on certain things or different campaigns that haven't worked, but I don't see them as mistakes because we learn so much from them.
And those don't consume that much energy.
No.
I mean, it just makes a dent in the balance sheet. But
I feel like I'm quite good with my spend, but yeah, things that you might have built up a lot of momentum for and they didn't quite pull off the way that you'd hope. But, that's how you learn and how you know where to pivot things. And it's one of our values is breaking boundaries. So you can't break boundaries if you're not trying something different or
absolutely
pushing yourself. So
another reason why people are important is because it has knock-on effects.
Yeah, for sure.
You know, the wrong budget spend only has impact on the balance sheet and like us, but it doesn't have like impact on your team, right? And everyone else.
I guess then on the flip side, what is some of the best things about a scale up?
I think in a startup, if it's done right, obviously like you're scaling profitably. So in our case, like when we became profitable, I thought we were at scale up phase. So now we have a lot of means and resources to test out different things. So we can do huge campaigns and like, you know, everyone can grow within the team, and just seeing everyone grow and flourish within the team, that's very rewarding for me. And also like being able to do things very differently to everyone else. And like I can proudly say that we're winning and we're really like leading in the industry, and we see a lot of, you know, bigger brands following us, which is so flattering to see. So I think those are the best bits of a scale up.
It's really like great to be able to have an idea, discuss something and try it and run with it, and see what happens, and then it kind of like takes us onto another exciting project.
It's so exciting. Watch this space.
Yeah.
Thanks, Sarah.
Thanks for having me.
I'd love to have you again in a few weeks' time, and we can talk about navigating parenthood and business.
Yeah, sounds good. See you then.
Yeah, see you soon. See you in 30 minutes.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you so much for listening. Don't forget to follow the podcast wherever you're listening or watching. You can follow me at Connie Nam, Astrid Miyu at Astrid and Miyu, and the Unboxed Instagram page at unboxed_founder confidential. See you next week.